Welcome back to the show. If you've experienced the loss of a loved one, you know it's incredibly hard at times to stay motivated, but it's important to find your way through loss.
Our next guest eloquently stated, grief is just love with no place to go, and the more we learn to walk alongside each other in these seasons, the better we'll all be for it. We welcome award-winning author, speaker, and writing coach Stacy Hawkins Adams back to Virginia this morning.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
We're painting Mondays as Motivational Mondays. And Stacy, you've joined us and you've talked and you're just so insightful with so many things. Today we are finding our way through loss, talking about grief, and really I think I know it's one of those incredibly difficult conversations to have. People don't want to talk about it. People who are experiencing it are just can be lost. And yet those around them don't necessarily know how to comfortably pick up the conversation to process this.
Very, very true, Jessica. The last time I was here, about 3 weeks ago, we were excitedly talking about my daughter's upcoming wedding. And so she did get married on April 6th. It was a beautiful ceremony in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a few days later, while we were still in town, my eldest sister passed away. And so this is something that's personal to me that I've been walking through with my family. And I was scheduled to come on, and I always want to be authentic in everything I'm sharing with others. And so I couldn't come on and not talk about this experience. And I think you teed it up perfectly. You both did. Grief is love with no place to go, and people do and should walk alongside those walking through it because it's something we all experience. In my case, it's the loss of a very beloved sister. Sometimes it's the loss of a career. Sometimes it's the loss of a relationship. So grief happens in many different forms and facets. And I think the best thing we can do is just show up for people. Sometimes we don't know the words to say, and that's often why people stay away. But you can offer a hug, you can squeeze a hand, you can simply say, "I'm sorry." And that's very meaningful for someone who's walking through grief.
And thank you for acknowledging that it's not always the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of something about our lives that was really what made it normal. And now we're in a season of trying to understand why something may have happened or what it's going to look like next. So as you mentioned, being there to be supportive is so important. There was an Instagram post I saw recently that said, you know, grief will just attack you all of a sudden. You'll be having a normal thought, doing a normal thing, and all of a sudden there will be these memories of the past that you're reminded of. For those who are walking through this like you and your family are right now, what recommendations do you have for those moments where grief just feels like it comes out of nowhere?
I say sit in those moments. Unfortunately, I've walked through this quite a few times. My mother passed away in April 19 years ago, and I know with Mother's Day looming, this is a big issue for a lot of folks walking through those monumental moments, or like Mother's Day or Father's Day. I say when those moments come, give yourself the grace. We talked about the grace last time I was here, to sit in those moments, experience what you need to experience, and it's like a wave. It'll come and then it'll go. The other piece of that is don't feel guilty about celebrating positive moments, because typically, especially if it's a loved one that you were close to, that loved one would want you to live. That loved one would want you to go on. My daughter and her new husband, they struggled with going on their honeymoon, and our entire family embraced them and said, this particular aunt, she loved life so much and she lived so vibrantly. She, of all people, would want you to go and celebrate. So we encouraged them to go, and while they were there, they took a photo of her to the ocean side, to the water side, and said a prayer over her. And so I think when those moments come, sit in them, experience them, but then also think about what the positives were with that person or the situation, and try to let that guide you through.
And you know, just listening and absorbing and processing now the grief that we do go through, and personally speaking, having not been around grief that much until, you know, very intensely in the last 5 years, for me, it does come over you in those moments. I can be walking through the Walmart and something will trigger it, you know, and then next thing you know, you're crying over in the produce section.
Yes.
But you do have to allow yourself that time. And yet, for the folks who are around us, our loved ones who do want to help you navigate, I didn't really appreciate or learn until going through it. I avoided it. You wouldn't talk about the other person. You know, you might go on this honeymoon and then just, oh, we're having fun, we're having fun. But the reality is, I think it is very healthy to talk about it and process, and it really helps the individuals experiencing this grief.
Absolutely. I had the celebration of life for my sister this past weekend. I just flew in from Arkansas last night and we were there, and it was truly a celebration because we shared all these wonderful memories and stories about her. But even day to day, as I mentioned my mother, my children were 3 and 6 when my mother passed on. They think they know Grandma because I've kept her memory alive through stories. We've laughed, we've talked about her, we share her recipes. I use certain dishes that I inherited from her for my daughter's bridal shower. So I think it is important. And I think for those around us who are so uncomfortable, sometimes all you can say to a person who's grieving is, tell me what you loved most about that person. And also be okay if a few tears fall, because the tears are just a way of release, and just hold that person's hand or just nod and just be there with them in the moment. Like, you don't have to fix it or solve it. They just want to know that you're present.
Absolutely.
That's a great tool for those of us who may be walking with someone through it, to know what to say first, and having that be a positive interaction, at least in your first question.
Right.
Because you're right, sometimes you just stand there not knowing what to say, but that's a good one. What do you love about the person most? Well, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for sharing personally with us and giving us a reminder that it's truly about the way that you carry that person's legacy with you as you go.
You're very welcome, and hope you all have a wonderful Monday.
Thank you, Stacy, and it's all the better because of you and sharing this, and I know friends watching today definitely have absorbed it as well. Each and every week, Stacy Hawkins Adams sends out Motivational Monday inspiration by email. If you'd like more information on how to subscribe, visit our show website by early this afternoon. We'll have a link at virginiathismorning.com.